Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Minisode of Baka. Now, Baka is normally an anime podcast where every 2 weeks we watch an anime and we discuss it in a book club format with a little bit of reviewing, a little bit of discussion. Turn the comments over to you. Let you decide what's good, what's bad. You'll get the final say, the final word. This is a Minisode. We're not doing that. We just we're gonna talk about something else. We're gonna do something else with the Minisode.
No,
it's rules free for most of us. We all know who I'm talking about.
For certain ones, there's more rules.
You will wait till you're introduced, sir.
It's one of the rules.
So, when we did recently our episode on Ruroni Kenshin, the first season of the remake, we had thoughts. We had feelings. They weren't great. And in our old man memories, we decided the past was better and everything that is old is better than what is new. So we decided we were going to watch the 6 episodes of the old aired on Toonami Ruroni Kenshin.
Did you actually watch them, though?
Right. Troy could be dubious with that one.
Yes, I did. More on that later. To do so, though, I need to introduce my co-hosts. First off, we have the friends to my "So No One Told You Life Was Gonna Be This Way."
Oh, God.
Jeremy with his 90s anime hot take.
Oh, it's a mini. We gotta do hot takes for minisodes. Okay. I'm gonna follow up on the last one and say 90s anime looked better because today they all look like Flash. There's no hot take.
What if I post these out of order? You are screwed, sir.
It's true.
And we also have the Seinfeld to my boom. I almost had it. I didn't get it. But it's Jason.
I'm unsure if this is a 90s hot take. However, if you have not seen the original Akira movie, I question your fandom of anime.
That's fair. I think that's fair.
And my name is Troy. My 90s anime hot take is
Nice work.
Minisode,
I'm glad.
no rules. Let's go on. It's time for such things.
Wasn't this your bit?
Who does hot takes in a Minisode? That's just dumb.
Thank you.
Okay, here we go.
So, to say our minisodes, kind of loosey-goosey.
And what is a minisode?
Anyway, they're usually loosey-goosey. I would say this one's even loosier-goosier. I'm not doing a recap. I didn't take any notes. I just had this.
Okay. If you watched our recap of the 2023, it is the same. Beat for beat.
I mean, basically, there are some really important differences,
Obviously.
but basically.
So really, we're just gonna verbal diarrhea our thoughts for the next minutes. Publish it. None of you are gonna press play, so it doesn't matter anyway.
We'll press play to make sure that everything's working, and then we'll look back and see those 2 views.
I'll have heard it because I'll have edited it. Otherwise, but it's fine. So who wants to kick us off? Old Ruroni Kenshin, new Ruroni Kenshin. What are our thoughts?
This was Jeremy's idea. I think he kicks it off.
Okay. So obviously we were right, and old Ruroni Kenshin is way better. It's awesome compared to new Ruroni Kenshin. But more seriously, I like the old film grain art style better. Genuinely, I think it looks really good. It adds this character and depth to it that I didn't get in the new one. The new one had nice crisp colors and it was clean and everything, but it just felt a little bit more sterile to me. But
Generic.
yeah, like it's a style that I see so much nowadays that I just really miss that old kind of fuzzy look. But it was more than just that. I actually really liked some of the other things that they did differently about the first one. And I know it wasn't necessarily keeping true to the source material. But if you remember, there was the big guy that pretended to be the Batosai, and he had an older brother. And the older brother was this old guy masquerading as a friend in the dojo. And that older brother doesn't exist in this version, in this older anime telling. And it's so much better that way. Instead, there is actually an older doctor that has like these two little daughters that are very young, and they're sweet, and they create so many cute moments. And it just adds something that I thought was really missing from the newer one. It also improved that initial arc story for that character of what his motivation was. Remember, we laughed about how it was like, oh yeah, he's so evil. You know, I want to sell the land rights, right? Whereas this gives him something that's a little bit more easy to understand where he's coming from and how he's pissed off, right? Because he's been humiliated in the class. Now he's a horrible guy. He deserved the humiliation, but at least it's more of a motivation than what we got in the newer version. But that's just a couple of things. I don't want to steal them all. There's quite a few, I think, that make the older version very different and, in my opinion, better.
Yeah, Jason, what was your impressions?
The characters have a little bit more seriousness to them than the newer one. However, man, the combat animation is just it's not.
You don't like the inverted colors?
I don't like the still frame and little white slashes going on the still frame. That's not combat. I felt the 2023 version, Kenshin felt more dangerous. But the characters felt more believable in the old one. So like this is the first time I've seen any of the old one. And I'll have to say there was a bit more gravitas, especially with the fight against the last guy in episode 6. But I don't know. Some of those old 90s anime, I'm not a big fan of the film grainy, slow combat style. So
I actually agree with you in the combat style. I think there were some things that were better about the newer one. I like it when they choreograph the moves more and don't just do like a bunch of white lines. There's one scene in the first episode where the fake Batosai is swinging at Koru. I think that's her name, if I remember right. And if you take them side by side and you compare like the new version and the old version, in the old version, she like slides back and to the side in a way. She has like a circular arc and she moves her head and her hair flips differently. Like there's a bunch of detail and nuance to it. That's one of the only scenes where they actually do that in the old one. Like most of them, like you're saying, are kind of very simplistic. But when they actually did go to the trouble of animating out any of the choreographed moves or any kind of interactions and stuff, there was so much more detail than you get. What you actually get in the new version is she just slides straight back, and then when her head tilts to the side, like her hair moves like it's plastic, like it's a part of her head, and it just looks so much worse when you compare that. But that's kind of a one-off. The vast majority of the time in the older anime, it is far more boring and simplistic combat. I'll agree with that.
When dude grabs her off the riverbank, in the new one, it feels like the next scene he's going to be tying her to train tracks. Like he's just in this one, it felt a bit more serious. Like, you know, this was part of the plan, and it didn't feel didn't feel that cheesy. So
as far as art style goes, I don't. While I have my personal preferences, I think that's just like I think people will be looking back at today's anime 20 years from now and being like, I miss this style, and then 20 years later, people will look at that, and I think it just evolves, and where your prime anime time was might help shape that. But I think they both have their purposes. I like the older style. I like the new crisp colors. I do remember while watching this one thinking, I got a sense of Kenshin's style, his sword style, that there actually was a sword style, whereas this just felt like magic attack. And I was like, okay, that's definitely a point against it. Characters are almost all the characters are much better. Kenshin's very, very similar, maybe even a little more silly, but I like that. It kind of ties into what I like about Trigun. The little kids that they added, I think is huge in a show the audience how golden hearted this character is, because you almost use it as a barometer for the audience. Like, hey, these kids trust him implicitly immediately. They can tell how good he is. And then the rest of the anime is telling us like, oh, he's got this dark history. Without them in the new one, it's like, is he just like faking it, or is he actually a evil monster? And what is Kenshin? And this one, it's like, oh no, he is a saint. He is a Goku. He is a Master Stampede. He's up there with these saint characters with a dark past. Definitely, I had remembered them being in there and didn't really notice they were missing in the new one. And then when I saw them again, I was like, wow, this makes a lot of sense to have them in there. And I'm assuming they're not in the manga. I'm assuming that's an anime-only edition.
Could be.
Karu is better. She has way more agency in the old one. She's involved in the plots and not just sitting around the dojo whining. And the tough guy.
Sansa.
Yeah, but that's not Sanosuke. I liked his dubbing much better. The way he's much more even tone, deep gravelly voice, not doing a lot of emoting. Really plays into the I'm too cool for school persona that he has. Where he's a little bit sillier in the new one. So I mostly agree that the old one is better from what we saw the first season, right? I've heard it gets better down the line, but the old ones made some choices that were really good storytelling decisions.
Yeah. What about the difference between not the choreographed step-by-step part of the combat, but more of like the zoomed out flow of the combat? Like the fight with Sansa specifically, with the big Zanbato and everything. I know that was something that we really didn't get any sense of impact from that in the new one. It was kind of a boring fight, almost a silly fight, combined with like how he smashed the gun and the guy had 3 guns and like it was just four guns. Yeah. There was just all this silliness to it, and it was very hard to take that fight seriously or to even be invested in it. It felt like a joke. I personally thought that this one was a lot better. I enjoyed the way that the way that Kenshin kept running up and down the sword, basically. I mean, he landed on that sword 2 or 3 times, and it was more interesting, I thought. And then the way that the bad guy was handled, having it all just be one guy instead of 2, and there was less machinations, and he just pulled out the one gun and didn't like show it off and do all kinds of stupid things like that. I liked the overall flow of the battle more. What do you guys think?
I liked the choreograph of the newer one better, just because it looked like combat. This one, you needed to fill in a bunch of details yourself in order to get the full breadth of the combat. There was a little bit more trickery with running on the sword or like dodging the Zanbato, but it's a near still frame except for his arms and him spinning the Zanbato. The rest of his body is just static. And I'm sure that's for budgetary reasons and also skill reasons. We're much better at animating today than we were back then. Besides that, it was, I felt the newer version. The newer version, the fight was longer, or at least I think it was, right?
Was it longer?
Felt longer to me. I felt like it was 2 episodes, where this one was just a single, like a half episode.
Right.
I think they broke it up on the end of an episode, but I don't think it lasted full episodes.
I feel like it was longer, or at least, and that was the impression it left. Whether it actually was time minute for minute.
Okay.
I'm not good with that stuff anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I mostly agree with Jason here. I agree that the only one like evil villain off to the side with less machinations made a lot more sense, because then there's Kenshin stopping him, and then Sanosuke stopping him, and that was like, oh, okay, it kind of shows where he is. Where, oh, I'm gonna stop this guy over here, and you're gonna stop this guy over here, and there's just was so much. It was so busy in the new one. This kept it simple. I didn't like him jumping on the sword more than once. I was like, really? that should be just a thing he did once, of like, hey, I could do this. Because as soon as Sansa realized, oh, he can get on my sword, I'm so slow, I'm just a ladder for him. You should have been like, no, I'm done. Thematically, it's better than the old one. Jeremy, I'll let you talk about the thematic of it, but thematically, it works better in the old one. The new one, the fight visually, I think, is better and more realistic. Again, not I'm magic, I can jump on a sword 4 times. Not like, here's me showing you just how big the gap is, and now I'm not gonna do that 4 more times. I'm not mashing the same move button in a fight.
Combo.
When he jumped on it the second time, I was like, really? We're just doing that again? Okay. Sure.
Well, this time I'm going to hit you in the back of the head with my sword.
Yeah, and then this multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, so each had its strengths and weaknesses. I probably would take the old one over the new one, just because I'd rather have the thematic and the simplicity and just move on with the storytelling. I love a good, cool fight. Always will do. But story comes first in my mind, and I do feel that the story got really muddied in the newer one because they drew it out so long. It got confusing and complicated, and they had characters yelling out on the sideline, oh no, he can only swing up and down and left and right, rather than Kenshin just saying it really quickly in the old one, of just pointing out like, hey, you just don't have a lot of options, man. You're not going to be able to hit me. It just felt cleaner, but visually inferior.
Also visually, I think I like the sword of the newer one than I do in the older one, because in the newer one, because the blade curves and it's blunt on the front side, it doesn't quite come to a point if you look at the new one. In the old one, it's just a sharp katana at the end, just with the blade reversed. So I felt the newer one gave it more gravitas of, hey, I am specifically using this to not hurt anybody. His in the old one had the potential, like at least it looked like it had the potential for stabbing maneuvers, but in either case, I'm not going to kill no matter what it is. It's still evil.
There's also, so this happens in the final episode. This is after Kaoru has run off to find Kenshin by the river, and there's a scene of Sanosuke and I forget the kid's name, the kid running down the street, and it's almost just a still frame of their legs moving for like 10 seconds straight, and then it shows them like the camera finally moves and like, oh, we reached the destination. And if you grew up in the 90s watching anime, you recognize this for what it is. You literally had to spin your wheels, and every anime had to make their decision of what to do, especially with budget, and you don't want to rush ahead of the manga material. Dragon Ball Z does their super long power-ups.
Oh my god.
Bleach does their
or you lose your plane.
Giant filler arcs.
Yes.
No, we're talking about the past, not now.
They do it in 2025 too.
For different reasons, though.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, Naruto and Bleach, they chose filler arcs. We don't really get filler arcs anymore because now an anime will just say, okay, we'll just not make the show until it's ready to be made, and there's so much anime that they can fill that space, and that's absolutely fine to do. If you're stalling in a show, that's because, hey, we were paid for 20 episodes and we only have 10 episodes of story to put in there. But back then it was, we have so much budget, we have to do this many episodes every season, and we don't get a break. We don't get a season off to build it. It's go, go, go. So just draw these two characters running animation and repeat it and stall for time. The old one definitely suffers from that in some places for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But without it, story much cleaner and better.
Yeah.
That's just the only thing. They had to muddy themselves. Again, it was the times. That was what everyone was doing. 90s anime just moves slower, especially with lower budgets.
Which is funny because the entire sequence with the Yakuza and getting Yashiko out of there, or Yajiro, or whatever his name is, the kid out of there.
The kid, yeah.
Getting the kid out of there. To me, that felt like it happened much faster in the older anime than it did in the newer anime. Like that was all done in one episode. Episode 2, I believe. And the fact that Kaoru went and took care of everything and Kenshin just showed up at the very end, it felt like it flowed so much better. Yeah, I liked that.
I like the kid's story better. The scene where the old man drops the wallet and he takes it, or he steals the old man's wallet, but then realizes what the old man was going to use the money for and brings it back. Like before he's ever even met Kenshin, I thought was a much stronger character beat than anything they did with him in the new season where, oh, I'm pissy because you caught me. And after I saw Kenshin, I feel like I'm the kind of person who wants to make the good decision. I like that this show, he was a good person before, and it was Kenshin and it wasn't even Kenshin, right? Like
Kenshin noticed, but that was
Kenshin. Yeah. But he didn't see Kenshin like fight the sword police. That doesn't happen until later in the old one. Yeah. So he's just a good person on his own, and they notice and recruit him and take him in rather than I've been inspired by Kenshin. I like that beat better. It just worked for me.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, there was one other thing I wanted to mention, and that was how that fight with Sensuke ended. Now, when I first watched this as a teenager, I never saw this. Like, it never clicked in my head. And when I watched it in the newer one, it never clicked in my head. But when I watched it this time in the older one, and I saw the fight be over and the Zanbato be cut in half and be laying there next to Zanza on the ground, and he was basically talking about how he's no longer going to pursue that, course of a fighter because he failed at holding up the values that his mentor had for him, right? It suddenly clicked to me that, oh my God, the Zanbato is his burden. It's not his weapon, it's his burden. That's why he constantly carries it around all over the place, and it's all just this shroud, and it slows him down in combat. It's not good. It's not an advantage. It's actually a disadvantage. And that had never clicked before, that was supposed to be symbolic for him having his burden relieved through that fight with Kenshin. And that's really cool. And that came across, at least for the first time for me in the older version. I don't think it reads well in the new version, honestly. If they're trying to say the same thing, I don't think it reads as well. And part of it may also have to do with his backstory. His backstory was so different in this one. Like, yes, some of the same major beats happened, but the other kid wasn't there, and there wasn't this abrupt switch to like, hey, we're suspicious that something might be bad, but everything's been pretty great so far. And then now, hey, your mentor's head's on a platter, that didn't happen this time. Instead, you had like a wooden chase through the woods there. He's being hunted. They kill the mentor. He gets thrown in the water. It felt so much better. The storytelling felt nicer, smoother.
All right.
Him walking out of the restaurant not paying got me again.
Yep.
Pretty good.
Every time.
Actually, as much as I complimented his more stoic nature, it did kind of clash with that moment a little bit more the newer Sanosuke with his more goofy self, I'll call it, definitely felt like, oh, that's a good funny beat. Where in fact he was so serious and so like, I'm a cool guy, that to put in this comedy beat on him, I was like, oh, that feels a little out of place for me. But that was just me. We need to wrap this up because I don't like a long minisode, guys. This is editing work for me, and no one's listening anyway. Yeah, let's give some final thoughts. You don't have to give it a score, but just
4.
Too long, didn't read.
If I had to choose one or the other, I think I would just choose the 2013 or 2023 one, just because of the newer quality and the choreography.
Cult of the New.
Yeah. I'm all for the old one. I like the story better. I like the characters better. And the combat was not a big enough issue for me to detract. It was still, I like the flow of it better.
Grumpy old man.
Yeah.
I like both equally.
Oh.
And find value in all things.
Soggy piece of
I would
toast.
probably go with. I actually probably would go with the older one, just because I found the characters better. A lot of my character complaints from our review were dealt with in this older retelling. 2 little kids. That's all you gotta do. Add 2 little kids to every anime, it gets better.
Maybe not every anime.
Boom.
Dragon Ball Daima, turn them all into 2 little kids. Better.
They got some extras.
Speaking of which, our next regular episode, we will be talking about Dragon Ball Daima, the last 10 episodes of that show. There, Jeremy, now I've chronologically placed this episode where you want it to be.
Good.
All right. Yeah, if you have thoughts on old Ruroni Kenshin, new Ruroni Kenshin OVAs, Ruroni Kenshin Season 3, more done.
Samurai X.
Samurai X. That's the OVA, right? Doesn't matter. We're done with it. Feel free to tell us whatever you think or what we should have done instead of rewatching 6 old episodes from the 90s. Let us know on our website, theanimebakaclub.com. Hit that contact us button, or on Twitter at the Baka Pod. Anime Baka.
Killing it.
This. Almost like you do this sometimes.
Dead site anyway, or leave a comment wherever you found the podcast, and we will reply to it.
The Anime Baka Club.
The Anime Baka Club at the sure, you got it, nailed it, guys. I think it's time. I need to say goodbye. I'm done.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
Later.
Perfect.